त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव. Publisher's note: as a book of scripture, the Bhagavad Gita has assumed a position of universal interest. Its teachings have gained appreciation not only in India but far beyond its borders. Our Gita library alone comprises about 1,400 editions of the Bhagavad Gita, published in 34 different languages, including 8 foreign languages. This is our humble attempt for bringing out this English edition of the Gita in pocket size and in a popular form. We trust it will find favor with the English reading public. The English translation of this edition has been based on the Hindi rendering of the Gita made by Srimati Jayadalal Goenka, appearing in the Gita Tattva number of the Hindi monthly Kalyan, published by the Gita Press. In preparing the present English translation, the translators have made use every now and then of other English translations of the Gita, and we express our grateful acknowledgement for the same. In order to add to the utility of this small volume, an introduction by Srimati Jayadalal Goenka and a synopsis of the Gita have been prefixed to the translation, and an article by the same author bearing on the Gita has been appended thereto. Publisher. The greatness of the Gita. Truly speaking, none has power to describe in words the glory of the Gita, for it is a book containing the highest esoteric doctrines. It is the essence of the Vedas. Its language is so sweet and simple that man can easily understand it after a little practice. But the thoughts are so deep that none can arrive at their end even after constant study throughout a lifetime. Every day they exhibit new facets of truth. Therefore, they remain ever fresh and new. When scrutinized with a concentrated mind, possessed of faith and reverence, every verse of the Gita will clearly appear as full of the deepest mystery. The manner in which the Gita describes the virtues, glory, and secrets of God is hardly found in any other scripture, for in other books the teachings are generally mixed up more or less with worldly subjects, but the Gita uttered by the Lord is such an incomparable book that not a word will be found in it which is devoid of some spiritual import. That is why Sri Vedavyasa, after describing the Gita in Mahabharata, said in the end, Gita Sugita Kartavya Kimanyuha Shastra Vistaraho Ya Swayam Padyat Pashya Mukkapagdvinihi Sutta. The Gita should be carefully studied, that is, after reading the text, its meaning and idea should be gathered and held in the mind. It emanated from the lotus-like lips of Bhagavan Vishnu himself, from whose navel sprung the lotus. What is the use of studying the other elaborate scriptures? Moreover, the Lord himself also described its glory at the end of Gita, White chapter 18, verses 68 to 71. All men, irrespective of varna and ashrama, possesses the right to study the Gita. The only qualifications needed are faith and reverence, for it is God's injunction to propagate the Gita only among his devotees. And he further said that women, Vaishyas, Sudras, and even men born of sinful wombs can attain the supreme state of salvation if they cultivate devotion to him, and through worship of him by the performance of their own nature-born duties, men can attain perfection. Class chapter 18 verses 46. Reflection on these verses make it clear that all men have equal right to God realization, but owing to lack of understanding of the truth behind this subject, many persons who have only heard the name of the Gita make this assertion that the book is intended only for monks and ascetics, and they refrain from placing the book for study before their children out of fear lest through knowledge of the Gita and latter renounce their hearts and homes and turn ascetics themselves. But they should consider the fact that Arjuna, who had, due to infatuation, prepared himself to turn away from the duty of a Kshatriya and live on alms, being influenced by the most secret and mysterious teachings of the Gita, lived the life of a householder all his life and performed his duties. How can that very Gita produce this diametrically opposite result? Therefore, men who desire their own welfare should give up this delusion and with utmost faith and reverence induce their children to study the Gita, understanding the meaning and the underlying idea of every verse, and while studying and reflecting on it themselves should, according to the injunction of the Lord, earnestly take to spiritual practice for obtaining this most valuable human body. It is improper to waste even a single moment of one's time in indulging in transient enjoyments, the roots of sorrow. Principal teachings of the Gita. For his own realization, God has laid down in the Gita the principal ways, Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga. Of these, all objects being unreal like the water in a mirage or the creation of a dream, gunas, which are the products of Maya, move in the gunas. Understanding this, the sense of doership should be lost with regard to all activities of the mind, senses, and the body. Chapter 5, verses 8 9. And being established ever in identity with all pervading God, the embodiment of truth, knowledge, and bliss. Consciousness should be lost of the existence of any other being but God. This is the practice of Sankhya Yoga, regarding everything as belonging to God, maintaining equanimity in success or failure, renouncing attachment and the desire for fruit. All works should be done according to God's behests and only for the sake of God. Chapter 2, verse 48. Chapter 5, verses 10. And with utmost faith and reverence, surrendering oneself to God through mind, speech, and body, constant meditation on God's form with remembrance of His names, virtues, and glory should be practiced. Chapter 6, verse 47. This is the practice of yoga by disinterested action. The result of both these practices being the same, they are regarded as one in reality. Chapter 5, verses 4 5. But during the period of practice, they being different according to the qualifications of the sadhaka. The two paths have been separately described, chapter 3, verse 3. Therefore, the same man cannot tread both the paths at one and the same time, even as though there may be two roads to the Ganges. A person cannot proceed by both the paths at the same time. Out of these, Karma Yoga cannot be practiced in the stage of sannyasa, for in the stage renunciation of karma in every form has been advised. The practice of Sankhyoga, however, is possible in every ashrama or stage of life. If it is argued that the Lord has described Sankhyoga as synonymous with sannyasa, therefore sannyasis or monks alone are entitled to practice it, and not householders. The argument in is untenable because in the course of his description of Sankhya Yoga in chapter 2 verses 11 to 30, the Lord here and there showed to Arjuna that he was qualified to fight even according to that standard. If householders were ever disqualified for Sankhya Yoga, how could these statements of the Lord be reconciled? True, there is this special saying clause that the sadhaka qualified for the path of Sankhya should be devoid of identification with the body. For so long as there is identification of the ego with the body, the practice of Sankhya Yoga cannot be properly understood. That is why the Lord described the practice of Sankhya Yoga as difficult, chapter 5, verses 6, and disinterested Karma Yoga being easier of practice. The Lord exhorted Arjuna every now and then to practice it to, together with constant meditation on Him. We bow to that Supreme Purusha, Narayana, who is extolled even by great gods like Brahma, Varuna, the god of water, Indra, the god of rain, Rudra, the god of destruction, and the Maruts, the wind gods, through celestial hymns, whose glories are sung by those proficient in chanting the Samaveda through the Vedas, along with the six Angas, branches of knowledge, auxiliary to the Vedas, Pada, division of the Vedic text into separate words, Krama and Jatha, particularly forms of reciting the Vedas and the Upanishads, who is perceived by the yogis by means of their mind made steady through meditation and fixed on the Lord, and whose reality is not known even to gods and asuras. Obeisance to Vishnu, the dispeller of the fear of rebirth, the one Lord of all the regions, possessed of a tranquil form, lying on a bed of snake, from whose navel has sprung the lotus, the Lord of all celestials, the support of the universe, similar to the sky, possessed of the color of a cloud, and possessed of handsome limbs, the Lord of Lakshmi, the goodness of wealth, having lotus like eyes and realized by yogis in meditation.